Robert J. Conley here. To what do you take two? To what do you subscribe? Now, I'm not talking about Disney Plus or Blue Apron. I'm talking about assumptions. To what assumptions do you subscribe? So, one of my favorites is from the psychologist M. Scott Peck, and the essence of it is life is hard, and once you accept that, life gets easier. It's operating from an assumption that somehow life should be easy. That can make you completely miserable. So I have found that to be quite liberating. Now, the purpose of this talk is to challenge you to vet your assumptions, to really evaluate, challenge what it is that works for you and doesn't work for you. Look at the assumptions that cause you stress, anxiety, depression. Sit in a quiet space and be with them. And so first identify what stresses you, and then remove the outer circumstances that you might be blaming and look inwardly for what assumptions are guiding you in this regard. And so, when you dig into each assumption and be critically honest, is this assumption serving me? And does this assumption align with what is reality? Because your assumptions won't alter reality, but you can alter your assumptions. So that's your third step, is to make that decision. And it is a decision. And it's a hard decision for a lot of people to let go of assumptions. For all of us, not just some, me too, all of us. It's hard for us to adjust our assumptions. We would rather, or sometimes just live in hope that reality will change and we can keep going on with our assumptions. So I want to share with you three assumptions that have been very liberating for me. And many people already operate from these. And I also have had feedback when I share these that people go like, oh, wow, those are really bummer assumptions. They're not. They're completely liberating. So I'm going to share with you three assumptions that can, if they're affecting you, the choice to change them can alleviate stress. So assumption number one, most people aren't seeking what I have to offer. In my business as a coach, in helping people to think accurately and to see possibilities and to generate new opportunities, most people aren't looking for that. And so my stress level went way down when I was able to observe that and go, wow, few are looking for this. But I'll tell you something, the reward of finding those few and the few finding me, it's ridiculous. It's great. But to embrace that most aren't looking is completely liberating. And I'll even put it on an enormous frame of reference. So like in early 1980s, Michael Jackson released the biggest record album of all time, Thriller. And in that time, and since it came out, what is that, almost 40 years ago, it has sold 66 million copies. So that's an enormous number. 66 million people loved his work enough to pony up the money and buy the album. Now, what's the flip side of this? And this could sound negative, but it's not meant to be that way. What's the flip side of selling 66 million albums? Over 7 billion people didn't buy his album. Do you think Michael Jackson was stewing about the fact that 7 billion people didn't buy his album? Hopefully not. I don't think he was. And so that number one thing, most people aren't looking for what you have to offer. And so some of the hard work when you're starting out, or if you're restarting, is to find the few who do. All right, that's number one. Number two, most ideas don't pay off. One of my favorite examples of this was an interview with Jerry Seinfeld one time, and he's one of the most accomplished comedians of all time, and even he said that something like 75 or 80% of the things that he thinks of don't get a laugh, don't work. Think about that number. 3/4 of the time, his thoughts about what's funny don't work with everyone else. Look at the patent office. Every year, the patent office issues over 500,000 patents. Something like the number's kind of fuzzy, but it's something like 2 to 10%. Only 2 to 10% even do well enough to even cover the cost of getting the patent. And the number that actually are a financial windfall is even smaller than that. So most ideas don't work. What does that tell you? It tells you to keep generating more ideas, to work as hard as you can on any given idea, but to be at peace that, oh, the odds are this isn't going to work. But you know what? I love the idea, or I think whatever it is that drives you, go with it. But equally importantly, when it starts to add up that, oh, this patent or this invention, this idea, it doesn't make sense, you cut your losses and you move on and you keep generating new ideas. So that's number 2. Most ideas don't pay off. All right. And the last one is there will always be opposition. There will always be opposition. Now, I saw this in my real estate career. I spent over 20 years as a commercial real estate broker. And you could have the most blighted piece of property that a developer was going to buy and redevelop, and there would be opposition. There would be opposition to it. You look at any political poll. Is the sky blue? 20% of the people will say no. It doesn't matter what the topic is. There will always be opposition. Now, and another way to look at this is, so first of all, just, in your life, just accept there will always be opposition. And then it becomes a matter of determining how much do you deal with the opposition. Are you in a position to just completely ignore it? Cool. Like in the real estate world, no, you're not. You're not able to completely ignore it. In the real estate world, a few really loud voices can kill a terrific project. And so it becomes a decision. So you let go of the frustration or disappointment that there's always somebody against you. And actually, one of the things you realize is that, well, actually, without opposition, there is no game. In sports, there's always opposition. In life, there's always opposition. Do we always laugh at that? No, we do not. We oftentimes cry at it. But the choice that we can make is how we deal with it. Can we embrace it? Do we fight it head on? Do we try to ignore it? Do we sideslip it? But again, with forethought and strategy, we can make effective choices, and we can remove the anxiety, stress portion of whatever that is causing. All right. So those are 3 examples. And I want to close with one of my all-time favorite quotes is, so I opened with M. Scott Peck, a psychologist. I'm going to close with a quote from whom many believe is to, think of as the father of American psychology, William James. And he said, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Our greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So if you can just every day go, yep, there's going to be opposition, I'm up for it. Most of my ideas aren't going to work. I think, these are truly new ideas, not proven stuff. But, most of those things aren't going to work. Most people aren't looking for what I have. But I'm going to venture forth in a spirit of fun and adventure and proceed to offer what I have to the world. And those few that want it are going to make my life incredibly sweet and gratifying and mutually rewarding. I'm Robert J. Conley, and I'm also going to challenge you to choose to have a great weekend. Take care.